Hey y'all, welcome back to New Slang. I'm music journalist Thomas Mooney, and this go around I'm joined by Ricky Young of the Wild Feathers. I've been a huge fan of the Wild Feathers since the first time I came across them several years back. They happened to be playing this really small dive bar in Lubbock, and the first few dates were a couple of solo dates, but they wound up opening for Paul Simon on this run. And I remember them having just a few songs that were live on YouTube and convincing a lot of my friends to go to that show. And really, still one of the best shows I've ever seen in Lubbock. Since that first show, just kind of an instant fan. And anyway, they released this new compilation of songs back in late November called Medium Rarities. It's a really, really great set of B-sides and covers. They do Blue by the Jayhawks, Almost Cut My Hair by Crosby, Stills and Nash, and a criminally underrated and really like an unassuming rendition of Guitar Man by Bread. This one right here with Ricky was a great conversation about putting Medium Rarities together and how that's really a nice reflection of this past decade of the band. Today's presenting partner is our pals over at Desert Door Texas Soto. If you're asking yourself what exactly Desert Door or a Soto is, well, it's a premium, high-quality spirit that is similar to a tequila or a mezcal, but in my estimation, it's more refined, smooth, and fragrant. It has a distinct and intriguing palate that picks up on hints of vanilla and citrus while maintaining a healthy earthiness that is quite enjoyable. One of my favorite features about Desert Door is just how versatile it really is. If you want to feel fancy and a little highbrow, it's perfect for a variety of cocktails that call for lime wedges and coarse salt, chopped ginger, agave nectar, sprigs of thyme and sticks of cinnamon. If you're down to muddle some fresh fruit, all that kind of stuff, it's perfect. It's great for experimentation and fine-tuning all of your mixologist skills. And then also, if you're a little bit more down home and casual, you got that denim jacket on, it's just perfect for those short and sweet, simple go-to favorites that hit the mark every time. I'm talking about ranch waters and Moscow mules and palomas and Mexican Coca-Cola with Desert Door. What I love so much about Desert Door is just how genuine and authentically West Texan they are as well. They go out and harvest Soto plants out in the wild and are aware and knowledgeable conservationists at heart. So next time you're at your neighborhood liquor store, get yourself a bottle of Desert Door. I'll throw a link into the show notes for more information. Before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't just yet. If you're on iTunes, leave a 5-star review as well. Be sure to check out the merch store. We have new coffee mugs, t-shirts, and shot glasses. Go get yourself one. Check out the Patreon as well. It's a great way to support this podcast and journalism in general. And it's a great way to get ad-free episodes, merch, and much more. All right, let's get on to it. Here is Ricky Young of the Wild Feathers. So, I don't know if you remember me, but you guys played here in Lubbock probably, I don't know, like almost 10 years ago now. This little small dive bar. You guys were about to be like playing and opening up with Paul Simon. I remember that. And
right.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy in my opinion because it's like, I remember seeing you guys playing this little small dive bar in like the depot area. You guys were going to be going on tour with Paul Simon soon after that. And then all of a sudden, seeing you guys kind of like your career develop, releasing these records. And,
right.
I just got to say, like, it's been in this weird way, like, in this fun way, just kind of seeing from afar, like, the development of this career has been really, really cool, and seeing the records y'all have made. And, I don't know. It's been really cool seeing that.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate it. And I think I do remember, that was so long ago and probably like 8,000 shows ago, but I think I do remember, I definitely remember the name New Slang. So that, I think that's tied in somehow, on how I remember. But yeah, it's been a long time seems like it's flown by, and it also seems like it's been twice as long.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things, right? It's like, because for me too, I'm like, it can't be a decade ago, but also at the same time, I'm trying to like remember all the details of it, and yeah, it's just again, it's been really really cool seeing like, especially whenever you guys got that first record out. I remember you guys had a couple of you guys were selling like an EP at the time, and I still have that copy of that EP, and
Yeah.
and then of course like seeing that develop and bud into this full length debut record, and just like obviously you guys have released more records since then and everything, and
Uh-huh.
I want to start. I guess like I want to talk about this new one, this collections of like B-sides and rarities, and
Sure.
obviously that first song on there is Blue, which is that Jayhawks cover, and I remember you guys putting that out
Uh-huh.
back in the day, and it's this collection of B-sides and a couple of new songs and stuff, and I'm sure like that's something
Uh-huh.
that you guys had a general idea of like, hey, we want to do something like this at some point, but I'm guessing that kind of went on the front burner, if you will, with this past year. Is that kind of the case?
Yeah, exactly. We really were wanting to get in and make a new record, and the 3 new songs on there were the beginning of what we were going to do, and then, the pandemic hit and all that, so everyone's freaking out, and, everything's shut down, obviously. And, we just completely stopped working. And we had all kinds of tours booked, all kinds of stuff booked for last year. And then all of a sudden it's just your hands are tied and you can't do anything. So we decided we always have just a ton of songs sitting around because, for better or for worse, we write a lot, so not every record can have 50 songs on it. So there's a lot of songs that kind of fall through the cracks, because they might just not fit with, like the sequencing might not, make sense. There might be too similar of a vibe for some stuff, so certain songs just don't make the cut. But we've always had them, on our hard drives and saved and stored away. So we started kind of talking about putting together something to put out. Since we couldn't really get in the studio and work, we thought, why not just put together something that we've already recorded, add it to the new songs, and have like a B-sides and rarities thing. And everyone was on board. And it's kind of something that we've always really wanted to do because, we're one of those bands that wants to have everything checked off the list, live albums, box sets, rarities, the double out, all those things that people like as music fans, especially if you're a big fan of it, one band in particular, you want to try to grab up everything you can get your hands on. And we've always said since day one we wanted to do that, half jokingly, half serious. Like, we want to have a complete catalog out there for our fans to have. So we thought, hell, let's just check it off the list. That's one more thing, one less thing, to have to worry about doing. And then two, that was only how many songs are on there? 10, 11, I don't know. But there's plenty of other songs, and we've written a ton since, and you can't say that every song is going to make it on a record. So, there'll probably be more volumes and different releases of stuff like that too, which is fun for us. And I think fans like it too. You know what I mean? Because some songs that we think might not be, that great, our fans are like, I cannot believe you didn't put this out. This is my favorite song ever, or you know what I mean, my favorite Wild Feather song ever. So yeah, I mean, it's just something that we wanted to do, and we did it, and the response has been great, and we're super proud of it. So on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think like most people, I love the full length record. I love that studio record as far as when a band makes that record where the songs fit a theme, right? And all that kind of stuff, and a time and a period. But there's something really, really cool and very fun about when a band does something like this, in that B-sides and rarities and covers or any kind of collection like that, where it's kind of a more loose and general kind of thing. I think that, like, as you said, like, fans love that. I think it kind of shows a little bit more of maybe like a personality of an era, because like this kind of, as you kind of put it, like, it does cover this past like decade of the band, or the first decade really of the band,
Right.
is because there is that Jayhawks cover, and then 3 new songs that you guys had put on here as well, and so it kind of like captures the first decade of the band too.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's kind of like closing the door on one chapter and cracking the door into a new one, which we've hit full speed, since we finished that project. So yeah, it's just, looking back on that time, that was great. And now we're moving forward and doing some other stuff, that we're really excited about.
Yeah, well, like, you mentioned how, like, a lot of bands, just plans got put on hold, thrown out the window this past year, and I've found a lot of, I found it really interesting talking with a lot of different artists this past year as far as what they've done to fill that time, because it's one of those things where a lot of them have spoken to me, at least, about how, especially early on, it can be difficult to just like, oh, I'm going to write a record, because it's this weird block of time, and it's this weird point in our lives where,
Right.
I don't know, like, it's putting that kind of pressure on, because like there's so much like up in the air. It felt like we're all in this limbo, because, I think a lot of people were optimistic pretty early on, thinking, well, we're just going to push things back to the summer. We're going to push them off 6 weeks and see what the climate is at that point. And then, of course, like, at
Right.
some point we realized, that's just undoable for us. Now, like, I know, like, you as a songwriter, you're constantly kind of always been writing, and you have a lot of other cuts outside of the Wild Feathers and working with different songwriters and stuff. But how was it for you, this just specifically you, like, this past year, as far as that creative outlet? And have you still been able to get a lot of the songwriting part done, or have you had to pivot to find other creative outlets to go towards?
Yeah. Well, it's been pretty rough. At first, the longest time, my daughter's almost 4, and my wife was having to work from home, and all the schools were shut down. And at the beginning of the year, we had cut ties with a lot of different people, like with Warner Brothers, with our booking agency, our management. It was kind of like this uncertain kind of time, but also a kind of exciting time, because we knew we were on the brink of something new and different, and it was kind of exciting. So we had some stuff booked, and we're looking forward to the future, and then the pandemic um, hit. So it went from all this excitement and looking forward to something to nothing at all. So that was pretty rough. And then trying to be creative, when you're having to entertain a 3-year-old, and your spouse is also trying to get her job done, and you're kind of, it's like you can go, especially in the thick of it, it's like you can go, to the mall, or you can't really just go over to a friend's house or do any other things that you would normally do with kids. So you're just kind of stuck there. And that was, pretty frustrating, but I still got some writing done, whether it be late at night or early in the morning or whatever, usually earlier in the morning. But, yeah, I still somehow managed to write quite a bit. But since my daughter's back in school, she hasn't been this week, obviously, with all the weather, but, she, she's been back. Her school's really great. They go above and beyond to take care of like everything. They take it very seriously, with the virus and all that. So they've had no incidents or cases or anything. So we feel really great about that. And that's kind of freed up a lot more time to get work done, etc. So it's kind of been, back and forth, trying to manage and organize time to be creative, and also take care of your family and take care of your own mental health, because it can be so frustrating. And I'm not the only one with kids. There's 2 other guys in the band that have kids roughly the same age. So that we've all been dealing with it. And also too, the band gets along so well, thank God. That's kind of become our bubble, all the wives are really close, and we hang out a lot pre-virus. So we've kind of kept it tight knit and not a whole lot of outside people, coming into the bubble. So we've all been safe and healthy. But, it has been a challenge, to say the least. But we're getting through it, and I feel good about this year. We have a bunch of stuff planned for this year, and God willing, it's all gonna keep moving forward. So who knows?
This episode of New Slang is brought to you by Hot Damn Coffee. Rolling in from the hills of eastern Tennessee is Hot Damn Coffee. It's a down-home company that roasts single-origin, high-quality coffees from around the world. Their year-round roasts come from certified farms in Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Nicaragua. Check out the Hot Damn website over at hotdamn.coffee. There you can find more info on their operation and roasting process, and some helpful tips on how to brew the best cup of coffee. They've certainly made my mornings that much better. And to be perfectly honest, I enjoy a nice cup of coffee at all hours of the day. Some of my favorites have been the Tanzanian pea berry in medium roast and the medium roast of Nicaraguan with the honey process. While there, check out their Hot Damn Coffee Club, which is a monthly subscription service. With the holiday season coming upon us, it's just really kind of the perfect gift. I don't care how difficult or easy a person is to shop for, they'll always be good with items like high quality coffee. And of course, right now, if you throw in the promo code SLANG in all caps, that's SLANG, you'll get 20% off your order. And if you're signing up for the Coffee Club subscription service, they'll take 20% off that first month and also throw in a bonus 8-ounce bag of their Nicaraguan coffee. Again, that's SLANG in all caps. Head over to hotdamn.coffee and sign up today. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, like that's something that I don't think I really thought about early on until someone mentioned it. And that was you're stuck at home, of course, but a lot of times spouses are, of course, and they're working from home. And if you have kids and it's all of a sudden, maybe if you had like, you were comfortable writing at home because you had that space because maybe like your spouse is out working and kids are in school and stuff like that. You had like that time and
Right.
that space, and then all of a sudden, when they're put in that space too, you're having to like reshift and reorganize and make. You got to be like understanding of boundaries and stuff, and that like these people have to. They're not in their normal part either, but like obviously they're there's a lot more dynamics and a lot more like I guess juggling of figuring out how all that can work and needs to work than I think a lot of people maybe, like I said, like even myself, I didn't really necessarily think about that until someone mentioned it and how they were trying to figure out how to, I guess, like not necessarily shut off like in front of their spouse, you know what I mean, or like be rude, you know, because you want to
Right.
be present
Yeah.
in those people's lives as well, while also maintaining that creative
Yeah, exactly.
space.
Yeah. Fortunately, we still have young kids, so you're their best friend. So, and they're not complaining about like, I can't go do this. They're too young to really understand the whole thing. Um, I really feel for like high school age and like junior high age kids that are very social and with like life events that they're been missing out on. That's just got to be tough, so tough on the kids, and especially on the parents to have to watch them struggle with that and keep it all together. So I'm ready. I'm ready for this shit to be over with, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's another thing where I'm such a I've mentioned this before on the podcast, and I know like the listeners are going to go, okay, yeah, you've mentioned this 1,000 times, but I have one little brother who's 14 years younger than me, so we're kind of like raised as like uh, as like solo kids, anyways. So I felt
Right.
like I've been kind of equipped and been okay to handle like something like this, the isolation. But what became super apparent was seeing friends or family post on Facebook or on Twitter and realize like, oh man, they really do need a whole lot of that social interaction. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like they're being selfish or anything like that. Like they're struggling because they kind of feed off of even just the strangers that they meet, and
Right.
it's been difficult for a lot of people out here.
Yep. For sure. For sure.
What's it been like? Have you partaken in any of these like Zoom co-rides or anything like that? Have you gone down that route?
I haven't yet. I'm not opposed to it. But it's still kind of tough, because writing a song with a stranger or with someone or whatever on a computer, and you're stuck at home with kids, it's just kind of like it's almost impossible. You know what I mean? So I haven't went down that road yet. I'm sure that's going to kind of stick around for a while. So I'm sure the time will come when an opportunity like that will arise again, and I'm willing to try it out. I can't imagine it being awesome, but you got to kind of roll with the punches a little bit and adapt. Um, so yeah, you know, we don't really do a ton of outside writing, anyways. I mean, I will, um, Joel will, uh, but it's not something that we like do a ton of. So that really hasn't been that much of an issue. Um, but we spend a lot of time when we can, when kids are in school and all that, Joel has a studio over at his house, and we'll go work over there, and that's kind of the way it's always been. So that really hasn't, affected us all that much as far as the creative process, as long as we can find the time.
Yeah. The Zoom part, are these I guess socially distanced co-writing things. I've heard a lot of people have ups and downs with them as far as it feels like anytime you throw anything technology wise in, you're just it's just one more thing you gotta have to worry about, and the maybe the lag of time and stuff, because you're clearly not in the same room, so that you can't necessarily be playing guitar together or something, you know what I mean, or
Right.
harmonizing over. I mean, you can, but there's still typically there's a little bit of lag. It's just different, but of course I've heard other people talk about how it's opened up opportunities that they didn't necessarily think they would have unless we did come into these times, just because of distance and stuff like that. But
right, and I'm sure there's a lot of benefits from it too. I mean, if I go into town or go somewhere to write, you're commuting, you're going out, that takes up a big portion of your day too. So just being able to, flip open your laptop or whatever and work, I mean, it might be something that I enjoy. I don't know. I can't picture me loving it, but who knows?
Yeah. No, I think there's anything, there's benefits and there's things that make it just kind of weird and awkward, and like anything else too, probably the more you do it, the better you get at it, and then if you're doing it with people that's probably the biggest thing too, is having that comfortability, that already established relationship. So yeah.
Right. If your kid is just being a disaster, you can be like, dude, I'm sorry, we have to do this shit another time. It's always easier when you're friends with someone, because they get it.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I've always appreciated about y'all's sound is just how it's always felt like it's really organic. And you've already mentioned how great you guys get along. I feel like that's always been one of those things that you can actually feel on the record when you're listening to you guys play. You can just feel there's that organic and genuine, relationships between the three of y'all, or the five of y'all really, but specifically the three of y'all that are singing and harmonizing together.
Right.
That clearly doesn't happen overnight, but how does, at what point did you guys kind of realize y'all three had these voices that just were distinct enough, and yet could come together and just become something new and fresh?
I don't know, but I know that as far as friendship and a brotherhood was instantaneous, and I guess we were just kind of willing and prepared to do it anyways, whether or not it worked. So, fortunately, people seem to enjoy it. We are very fortunate. We talk about it all the time, how fortunate we are to have the camaraderie and the brotherhood that we do. And it puzzles us, because I just don't understand how bands do it that are just miserable and they just hate each other. I just don't understand it. I can't imagine. You're closer to your bandmates than you are to your spouses. You know what I mean? It's for better or for worse. And I just can't imagine being stuck in a van or a bus or always traveling, because that's 98% of it is traveling together. And can't stand the way someone eats or talks or how they walk or what they listen to. And like, we're just very, very lucky that we're all just different enough from each other and also very much alike. So we're just very, very fortunate. And it's like our wives for the longest time, back before we were all married, but we were all still, dating, who we ended up marrying. They're like, y'all just were on the road for a month straight in a van, and you're going to go hang out tonight? You just got home yesterday. And it's like, well, I mean, after a while, you turn into this thing where it's like they're the only people you're completely comfortable around. And they get you, and you have this different language you speak, and you completely understand each other. And yeah, I mean, you need, especially when families come into the picture, you need your time. And it's not because we can't stand each other. It's because it's nice to kind of take a break and step back and then come back and be excited and feeling refreshed, So yeah, we really, truly, really like each other. It's strange, but we're not complaining,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also not like, it's one of those things where when you guys are riding around in 5 tour buses, maybe that's like whenever there's a problem. This episode of New Slang is brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. Blue Light has undoubtedly been my home away from home over the years and has played such a vital role not only for my development as a journalist, but obviously it's been one of the foundational pieces for a lot of your favorite songwriters and bands who have made it out of the Lubbock area over the years. And of course, as a music venue, they've played such a pivotal role for a lot of your favorite bands just in general. One of my favorite parts about Blue Light is just how versatile the place can truly be. I've seen it crowded and rowdy on a Saturday night for a rock and roll band, and I've seen it dead still on a Wednesday when a legendary singer-songwriter rolls through town. What you should do is go over to bluelightlubbock.com and check out all the new merch they've added. Hats, t-shirts, both short and long sleeve. They also have hoodies and koozies and just added some sweatshirts that are very much an homage to the college sweatshirt that John Belushi wore in Animal House. And then of course, maybe the crown jewel of their new merch is the Varsity Club style jacket in blue satin. I got one the other day, and yeah, it's just one of my favorite things I own now. And yeah, I don't know, I just love it. Anyway, you can check out all of their new merch over at bluelightlubbock.com. As always, I'll throw a link into the show notes for easy access. Okay, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, or like international flights, and everyone's hungover from the night before, and you have to take a cab to the airport in New York City, and it takes like 8 hours, and then you have to fly, and people, you see the best and the worst in people in those kind of situations, but we always find a way somehow to make the best of it and have fun with it, because that is the work part. And we've all had shittier jobs, and we don't want to go back to them. This is the best job we've ever had. So, we try to have a good attitude and be honest and upfront with each other and just make the best of it. And, so far it's really worked out for us.
Yeah. One of the things that has always interested me in when it comes to a band like y'all, where it's not just, one person writing the songs. It's not a solo act, if you will. It's not Ricky Young and the Wild Feathers or something like that, where
right.
You have all these different voices and opinions on a record, and you want to make these records where they fit like if we're talking about 10, 11 puzzle pieces, you want them to make that picture for the record. And, you mentioned how obviously you start out with a bunch of songs to begin with. And if you want, we can just use the last record as an example. The 2018 record, the one,
Greetings from the Neon
yeah,
Frontier.
greetings. I was gonna say welcome, but I knew it wasn't welcome. But yeah, the Neon Frontier. Let's just use that as an example. What is it usually? What's the process of starting out with that chunk of songs and figuring out where those puzzle pieces fit, and what's the general concept and what you guys want to accomplish sonically and everything like that? What's usually what's the first thing that you guys kind of do to get the ball rolling, set all that in motion?
Well, a new record is always looming. It's always around the corner. So it's always in the back of your mind. So just being songwriters, you're sitting around and you pick up a guitar. I'm not going to play, Left My Woman or Tall Boots on guitar while I'm sitting around the house. I'm going to play something new and exciting and something that I haven't played 4 million times, So you start thinking about new ideas. You come up with different melodies, you might have a song title you've been kind of kicking around that you want to finish. And so you're always kind of thinking about writing, and you're always kind of writing. The good thing about our situation is if any of us get stuck or, kind of hit a wall, we'll take it. And there's always, a fresh set of ears and someone that has a different perspective that's very helpful. So, sometimes you just write a song by yourself and it happens really quickly and the guys love it. And even if they do love it, there's like, what if we did this here and this part and then we changed this? And we're all very open-minded. None of us are like, no, dude, this is the way it is. This is my song. We're very, fortunately, thank God, we're very open-minded because, the old cliche is two heads are, greater than one. So 3 or 5 in that sense is even better. And if you just throw it at the wall, if it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. So, and that's the same for all of us. Like Taylor will have something. There's many songs, but one's coming to my mind right now that we just recorded, and he's had this like guitar riff forever, and we always knew we loved it. We always knew we had it in our back pocket. And then one day we just sat down and said, "Damn it, we're going to write this song." And so there it is. We put it to bed, and it's there. Something that wasn't there before is now done and finished, and we have it now. So things like that always it seems like it happens at the right time. They kind of pop their head up, and we get a song out of it. There's ideas and stuff still floating around from 5+ years ago that will probably more than likely be recorded at some point. Because until you really lay it down in the studio and release it, it's still a possibility. But yeah, we all just kind of write on our own and write together. A lot of times we'll meet up with the intention to write a song and someone might have a guitar part or something, but the idea is come up with something completely fresh and new. And those are a lot of fun. And a lot of times we'll go rent like a cabin or a house somewhere to kind of get away from everyday distractions and do something like that. We cook dinner every night. If it's the summertime, we'll fish in the morning or whatever, and then start around noon or 1 and work till late at night. And we've done that for every record we've ever put out. We've always went to a cabin and finished ideas or wrote completely new ones. And it's just always been a really healthy way for us to be creative and get work done, like I said, without the distractions.
Yeah. I always think that's really, really cool whenever a band or someone will do that where you can just step away and that's like the focus. It's the what I kind of envision is as you're finishing up some of those songs, or if you're even starting something and you have this idea, like it feels like it can be out in the air and it can marinate longer because you guys are all in that moment and where it may be something that you set down and start working on something else, but like it may be in the back of in one of y'all's heads or in all of y'all's heads, and it may come back up later where after giving a little bit of thought, maybe it sparks another idea, or maybe it sparks maybe something happens where you realize how to bring it full circle, or whatever the case is, whatever it needs. Sometimes just having
Right.
that space of around where I think a lot of times we think about you as a songwriter, writing the song is just you when you have the guitar in your hand or the pen and the paper.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's not necessarily that. It's all the time beforehand when it's like up in when you've been thinking about it.
Right. Exactly.
This episode is brought to you by Wild Gallery. Based in Austin, Texas, Wild Gallery is Austin's only art gallery featuring Native American art. Head on over to wyld.gallery to see their vast array of traditional and contemporary art by Native American artists. Currently, they are a virtual gallery. You can still make appointments on their website if you're wanting to purchase a specific painting in person, but of course, the beauty of them being virtual is that you're able to see and buy from your home without trekking all the way to Austin. While New Slang definitely focuses on music, I always love speaking with songwriters about those other mediums that they explore. Often that's through painting and drawing, the visual arts. And since I'm a West Texas native, I've long been drawn to the history, the stories, traditions, and heritage of Native Americans, especially those that were out here in the Western frontier. And that is what's so great about Wild Gallery. All of the artists featured are Native American, and they are telling stories about Native Americans. If you scroll through their collection, you'll see a wide range of styles as well. There's definitely some American West and some bold pop art. There's more of that traditional fine art like oil on canvas, as well as those that are influenced by Native American traditions. My parents, they always had paintings hanging around the house or their offices that were inspired by West Texas and Native Americans. And now I do as well, especially here in my office, which I'll let you guess where the latest print is from. As a journalist, I do feel like the most intimidating part is staring at a blank white page. And of course, you don't have to be a journalist to be staring at a white blank page. I know a lot of y'all do that. What I'm saying though is don't let your walls suffer from that same white blandness. Go visit Wild Gallery. I guarantee you will find something that moves you and that you'll want hanging in your home. Again, that's Wild with a Y. Go visit wyld.gallery. Links will be in the show notes as well. Okay, let's get back to the episode. What's been like has there been, you mentioned like there's some stuff that's been around, 5-6 years that may eventually get recorded, but is there any examples you have like off the top of your head that you just kind of, for you personally, you've been an idea that just kind of was around for a while and then it took a minute before you were able to, wrangle it in and get it put to paper and something that ended up being recorded?
Yeah. Well, in December of last year, we rented a cabin about an hour or so outside of Nashville. And it was in the middle of nowhere, like on 200 something acres, and had like a small little creek running through it. And we went out there with the intention to write. Well, not write. We'd already written everything, but we wanted to record an album ourselves. And a worst case scenario, they're just really, really great demos. So we brought out two of our sound engineers that we take on the road with us to kind of man the board and do all that. And we set up and did 14 songs in 4 days. It had an absolute blast. But one of those songs is the song I was talking about earlier, that Taylor had this guitar riff, and we decided we're just going to go write it. So he had it forever, and we went and wrote it. And it's funny because it's like the standout new song that everyone's kind of within in our little world, all of our people in our team, it's kind of everyone's favorite. And it's just kind of it goes to show, if there's a little bit of spark of something that feels magical, to give it a shot, because you never really know. And yeah, that's the one song that comes to mind is that one. It's called Ain't Looking, and it's just like a barn burner of a tune with this like raunchy riff on top. And who would have known? Who would have thought? And, until we tried it, And there's just stuff like that happening all the time. Because like we said, there's multiple people, just because, say, Brett and Ben don't write songs. Well, Ben is a huge music fan, and he's a great drummer. So we talk about music a lot, and we listen to a lot of music together, especially on the road. And he'll apply some of the stuff that he's been thinking about in the drum world, that will spark another, place of interest that creates another idea. So, it's a great thing with 5 people that, love creating together and working together. Because, I can have a little, let's see, on the second record, Belonging to Lifetime, there's a song called Sleepers that I wrote, and I loved it, but it was just kind of like a folk song. But I knew it had this kind of dreamy thing to it, and we thought it'd be fun to kind of mess with kind of more of a drone, ethereal kind of feel, and Ben and everybody was really into that. And then the song went from something that I was kind of playing I wrote on my back porch, one sunny afternoon, into this dark, kind of mysterious, dreamy, shoegaze, alternative rock song. And that's something that you can only do when you're in a band, I think. You know what I mean? You can always take a song into a studio with a bunch of studio musicians, and you can accomplish it. There's nothing quite like taking it to your buddy and being like, hey man, what do you think about this? And everyone's like, oh dude, that's cool, and I can do this, and I can do this, and then what if it goes here, and then it goes there? And then, the work part's over. Then it just becomes fun, and you're then you got, there's a song laid down. So yeah, that kind of stuff's really exciting.
Yeah, it must be super exciting as well, getting out there and, a little bit of that challenge of, hey, let's do a record ourselves. You guys have clearly worked with some really great producers, Jay Joyce, and but there has to be a little bit of that challenge of we want to, let's try and do this ourselves. And as you mentioned, if it doesn't work out, you guys got some really great demos out of it,
Yeah. And we've been making records for a very long time, even before the Feathers. We bring other bands and doing other projects. When you're around that environment for so long. Now, I'm not saying that you pick up on all the engineering skills. I'm talking about arranging and visualizing and having ideas and bringing them to life. I think we're really good at that individually and especially together. Joel he has a studio at his house, and he's really talented with, he's great Pro Tools, and we can make super great sounding demos, and we have for years. So late last year, we decided just to go spend a bunch of money on gear, as opposed to spending a bunch of money on studio time or a producer or whatever. And we just paid our engineers, our live sound guys, to come out and kind of engineer the recordings and kind of do it that way. And we've had a blast doing it. So then we've taken it back over to Joel's studio, and we've been doing overdubs and stuff like that. But yeah, we're totally capable. I mean, I think anyone is, as long as you have an idea and what you want it to do. The hardest part is, the engineering side of it was, just gear and stuff like that. That can be tricky, but when you're around it for so long, you kind of know how to do it after a while, I guess I should say.
Yeah. Like it's one of those things too, where, the like understanding the space of a room, right? And like the mic placement and all that kind of stuff is like,
right.
You want to lean on the guys who know that kind of stuff, and that's an entirely, that's something like I have very little experience, if not even any experience, but like you see and you hear and read about people who talk about that kind of stuff, and yeah, that's like where lean on the people who have who went to school for that kind of stuff. That, I guess, is what I'm saying. But
right.
Yeah. So like the last record, Greetings from the Neon Frontier, I really loved just the vibe of that record, and I loved how it felt very, there was these moments where it felt very, like the California kind of laid backness of something like Every Morning I Quit Drinking, or like Wildfire, or I don't know. I just love the vibe of that record, though. As far as it felt like you guys were working with in a lot of ways, I felt like you guys went further into some more of the atmospheric elements, even.
Yeah.
What was that kind of like? How did you guys end up getting to that spot where it was is that ever even a conversation, or is that just something that happens?
I don't know. I mean, it's weird because when you decide to make a record, it's, that kind of captures that period of time where everyone's head's at. And we always seem to be listening to the same music or talking about the same things. And again, I think it goes back to us being so close that we're always on the same page. And we've always been all about using the studio as an instrument too. It's not just a bunch of guys in there with lab coats and, there's a lot of rules. I mean, so for us, especially working with a producer like Jay that has this wonderland of a studio and endless possibilities, we want to utilize those tools and use them to our advantage. So, sometimes that can get in the way, and I think it has in certain places, just because you have the budget and the gear and all that and all the time you need, doesn't mean you should put, chimes on this part, or just because you can doesn't mean you should put just stuff that's not important that just it kind of bottoms out the song. Sometimes they just need to be what the song is. So, going into this new period where we're, doing it ourselves on this one, we just didn't want to get in our own way, and not saying that we're not experimenting, and there's not cool stuff, I just song, it doesn't sound like a dusty front porch with some banjos, I mean, like, we like that. But we also like Radiohead, so we're always into the challenge of coming up with something new and interesting, but also very weary of getting in our own way and taking the richness and the pureness out of the song just because you can. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, like it's almost like you've seen plenty of bands who have done this where you almost go a little too far sometimes, and then like you realize where those moments are where you have to scale back and get back to that balance of being progressive and going forward and trying and experimenting, but then as you said there, staying true to the song too, and like what those original intentions were.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. You okay, so these these little riding retreats and these little renting the cabin thing. So like who's like the best cook out of the band when you guys go on these?
Man, Taylor is a super talented, great cook. He loves like Asian food, and like he'll like whip up some crazy Asian cuisine or something. But usually at cabins, it's more like we'll do like tacos or steaks or stuff like that. A little easier stuff. Kind of like just a bunch of guys sitting around, like mainly just focused around meat and maybe a vegetable. But yeah, Taylor is by far. But everyone's really, really good too. I mean, Brett's a good cook. Joel's a good cook. I like to think of myself as I call it exterior cook, where like I like to, smoke barbecue and grill a lot. But Taylor can really do some serious stuff in the kitchen. But yeah, it's always a blast. We'll do like everyone kind of snacks on whatever throughout the day, and then we've been working for a good couple hours, and then we'll just it's time to start working on dinner. So somebody will be in the kitchen kind of prepping everything up, and while some of us are still working, and then it turns into dinner time, and start drinking some, and then eat, and then get back to work, and then go into all hours of the night. It's just kind of our favorite thing to do, and it's always worked for us. So yeah, we really enjoy it.
Yeah, I always love when those kind of retreats right there where it's just like the steak and potatoes, the meat, as you said, the one vegetable. I've always found like if you're trying to like make something really, really exquisite, and you're renting one of those cabins, there's always like something missing in the kitchen that you needed, and you got to keep it a little bit on the simple side of the stuff that that they're gonna be you're able to prep.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Well, it's been really, really great talking with you today.
Yeah, man, you too. We should do it again soon. Hopefully, maybe closer to when the new record comes out.
Okay, that is it for this episode. Be sure to check out Medium Rarities by the Wild Feathers if you haven't just yet. Check out our pals over at Desert Door, the Blue Light Live, Wild Gallery, and Hot Damn Coffee. Be sure to stop on over at the merch store and the Patreon. Again, a great way to support this podcast. And yeah, I'll see y'all later this week for another episode.